Once, I was working in a restaurant and I got done around 12ish. I always rode my bicycle to and from work. It was about 15 minutes along a bike trail next to the train tracks. This trail was constantly straight but had quite a few exits here and there. It was only a few small parts of it lit up by the street light, so without my front bicycle light, I would be blind for the most part. So this one night, I was on my way home after the shift and I noticed a guy is biking behind me, which isn't too weird at the time of night in a busy but very safe city. It was weird that he had no lights and was still there after the first main exit, which after that led to a small town, but I thought it might just be a coincidence. I felt a bit creeped out and thought I might just be tired and the dark of the nights getting to me. I decided to bike a bit slower and let this person pass since there was enough room on this trail. Well, the person started drifting along at the same speed as me and did not attempt to pass or even come close. This is about when I'm a few minutes away from the home and decide to take some random lefts and rights instead of going straight home just in case this person was following me and would find out where I lived. I bike around going in random twists and turns in a suburban neighborhood and he's still behind me. What I then did, as I noticed I was heading straight for a long, small, dark path, only for bicycles, I decided to turn into one of the houses and hide in the dark shadows of their garage. I heard this person pass the house and brake quickly on that small path. At this moment, my blood is boiling. Now, I hop on my bike, and when I passed the edge of the street, I stopped and stared that person in the eyes. Well, that's what I hope he thought because I actually could not see anything on his face. I biked so fast away and did a few extra loops here and there until I felt safe and alone to go home. Never had anything like that afterward and still don't know who or why it could have been. I'm happy not knowing. I used to have a buddy that lived in the same neighborhood a few streets over. One night, we're having a couple beers in his backyard while playing cards. I had some things to do the next morning, so just before 10, I said goodbye and shoved off. It was a short walk, maybe 15 minutes door to door, so I never drove. Anyways, it was a nice night and uneventful trip, but when I got home, my roommate was coming out from the door, coffee in hand, and dressed for work. He gave me a funny look and said he thought I was asleep since my truck was in the driveway. I told him where I've been and asked why he was going into work at night. That's when he kind of laughed and asked if I was drunk. We stared at each other for a minute and then he told me it was 5 in the morning. And he was going in just like usual. In my entire life, I've never felt more confused than I did at that moment. I could tell he was dead serious, but I knew I had just left my friend's house. I checked my phone and sure enough, 5-something in the a.m. My roommate left for work and I paced circles in the living room for a bit, then called the friend whose house I just left. He groggily answered and confirmed that I left at 10 the previous evening. I have no idea what happened during those 7 hours of my life, and it gives me chills to think about it all these years later. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't tired. No one could have slipped anything in either of the 2 Coors Lights I've had. No known medical condition that would have caused me to black out, and nothing has happened like it since. I just don't know what happened that time. I'd freshly turned 18 and was working a closing shift as a small cafe in a grocery store. One of my regular customers came in, Tom. Tom was a hugger, and he'd come in and call out, "Where are my girls?" And we'd all awkwardly hug this 80-year-old man while he whispered, "God bless you," in your ear. I hated Tom. He always held on a little too long and whispered a little too close. On this shift, I was closing alone and Tom came in at about 4 p.m. Not unusual. I dealt with the creepiness and got him his coffee and bagel. He was with his wife this time and she was sweet but tired looking. He started asking me questions as I worked. What do I have to do at night? Is it hard closing alone? What time am I off? Do I ever get scared walking to my car in the dark? The questions got progressively more uncomfortable and his wife just sat there eerily silent. I answered as friendly as I could despite the hair on the back of my neck standing up. I would catch him staring at me often. It was okay though, as I was off work at 7 so it wasn't a big deal. Until, well, he did not leave. His wife went home without him and he just stayed staring for hours. I asked if there was anything else he needed and he just said, "No, I'm just waiting for you to get off work." He wanted to walk me to my car. He said because young girls should not be in a dark parking lot alone. I told him it was not necessary and continued about my work, ignoring him now even as he stared. He left about 15 minutes before my shift ended into the dark Michigan winter. I breathed a sigh of relief. I don't think twice when I punched out and headed to my car. I grabbed my snow brush and began clearing my car, enjoying the quiet that's a unique snowy night. I began to hear the crunching of footsteps behind me. I brush it off. I'm in a parking lot after all, but they get closer and closer, past any other car directly towards mine. Parked away from the other employees parking, I look. It's Tom, maybe 50 feet away and smiling. He tells me that I should have looked for him and he's been sitting outside waiting for me, and I should know it's dangerous for young girls to be alone in a parking lot at night. I began shaking. I tried to open my car door, but it was frozen shut due to the earlier storm. Tom came closer, calling me a stupid girl and asking God to forgive him. I debated running back into the store. He was so old and he surely could not keep up. Right? I did not want to change it though. He could have been younger, as I'm a terrible judge of age and I'm not exactly fast considering my weight. So I stand my ground. I fumble in my purse for my pepper spray, thankfully attached to my keys. I tell him to stay back, I have pepper spray, and to go home to his wife. He glowers at me. I show him the tea canister. We're about 15 feet apart now, and he's well within range. He calls me a bitch, spits at me, and heads back into the store. I get into my half-uncovered car and drive home terrified. I called the store when I got home, only a mile and a half, so about 2 minutes, and told them what just happened. They kicked Tom out and told him not to come back. He began cursing up a storm and his wife had to come pick him up. He ended up getting arrested for child pornography a couple years later, but I don't know the details as I moved away at that point. Can't say I'm sad to see him go though. Midnight Monster here. If you guys have any similar experiences or creepy stories you would like to share, comment down below and they might just get pinned to the channel. Now sit back and prepare because story 4 is coming at you right now. So, this happened on my shift graveyard. I was helping another short-staffed store across town. Had a woman come in. She seemed a little frazzled and is carrying a Bible, but otherwise she seemed fine. She buys some chips, then starts talking to me about crazy, the coronavirus stuff, yada yada. Then she tells me she ate an evil spirit pretending to be a clove of garlic. I, of course, think she's just messing with me, but no. She pulls out a piece of garlic, lays it on the counter, and starts telling me it's not garlic, and it's a demon and wants to be possessing her. She then starts asking me if I believe in spirits or if I can see them, because despite looking like I'm one of the humans that's a third demon, I'm a human who's a third angel, who was sent to Earth to help expel the evil spirits and urges she feels, and that it's okay I don't know it. After all, she can see it and she leaves the garlic on the counter and tells me that she'll wait for me to deal with it. Now, that's pretty much where the original incident ended. A few days later at about 2 a.m., maybe 2:15, on a Tuesday, I'm working the graveyard shift at my usual store when this woman pops up again. She proceeds to just buy some candy and sort of hang out, asking me about jade, the jewelry type, and incenses, and if we've met before. Nothing quite as weird as previously. Now, the weird thing is I did not hear or see her come in before she approached the counter. We have a loud siren that turns on when the door opens and only shuts off when they close. This is normally not a big deal, but considering I've been stocking and cleaning in the front the whole time, and have only gotten 2 or 3 customers beforehand, yeah, it's a bit weird. She hangs out a bit longer, then rushes to the restroom and does not walk out till about 6. Says have a nice day and just walks out the store like nothing, which freaks me the fuck out because I cleaned the restrooms a little bit after she went in, and she somehow managed to slip out or hide somewhere when I went to clean them. Outside of hiding in the stalls, there's nowhere to hide in the restrooms and there are no windows to slip out of. And, like a jackass, I looked up at the top of the stalls and the ceiling. thinking she pulled a Spider-Man, but nope. She just poofs, disappears, then reappeared and left super casual a couple hours later. An old job I had was located on an industrial estate in the middle of an expansive, abandoned, and disused airfield. One of those places that even when the sun shone, if the estate was quiet, it was eerie. It was a small business, and because of the nature of the work, the main bulk got done in the morning, leaving the afternoon quiet and therefore only manned 1 or 2 members of staff. On this particular day, it was just me as my colleague was out at a meeting. It was a sunshiny, normal day, and I've been doing very little, as you do when left to your own devices in a quiet office. When I decided to take a break to go pee, now, because of the weird layout of the building to get to the toilet, you went downstairs, took a right at the crossroads, the front door on your left, and through at that point the empty warehouse, following the loop, leaving you directly under the main office. So there I am, having a grandiose wee when I hear the front door open and close. At this point, I'm not fussed. My colleague is due back, so it's most likely them, and if it's not, it'll be one of the drivers anyways, who quite often pop in and out. As I finish up and flush the toilet, I peer out the small window behind the loot to scoot out the section of the car park and just see who's arrived. Only, there's no cars by mine. That's kind of odd, and I'm a little unsettled, but I shake the feeling off by figuring it's a nice day, could just be a driver who has walked around. As I move to the sink and start washing my hands, the floorboards above mine start making the familiar creaks and groans of somebody ascending the stairs, and I can tell exactly where they are by the sound of which the stair they're putting weight on. So, somebody's definitely in and headed to the office. For some reason, the weird, unsettling feeling of earlier starts creeping back over me. So I finish up double quickly time and try to come up to the toilets. Just as the main floorboard of the office creaks, I'm calling out all the time as I take the loop back around and through the warehouse. As I reach the bottom of the stairs, there's nobody on them. And as I say, all the time I've been walking, I've been calling out, figuring whoever it is most likely stops and hangs back and wait for me. But there's nobody. Now, really creeped out, at the front of the stairs I call out once more, just in case they haven't heard, expecting somebody to poke their head around the main office door. Nobody does, just silence. By this point, I'm petrified. I'm on my own in the middle of nowhere, and somebody has decided to play peekaboo in the building. With my heart pounding in my ears, I take the first few steps. Alongside the stairs, there's a downstairs office and a small window that allows you to peek into the room. I check it. There's nobody in there, so I carry on up. Now, fully on guard at the top of the stairs, there's another crossroad. The main office on the right, the conference room with a shut door on the left. I reach the landing of the stairs fully tensed, with my keys in between my closed fist. I turn the corner, nobody there. The office is empty, but I have 100% heard somebody come in, and up the stairs. The door is so heavy that the sound of it opening or closing is unmistakable. All the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The only place somebody could be is directly behind me, in the closed door conference room, and there's no way I'm opening that. The room is a massive, pitch black area. I leg it downstairs just as my colleague parks in the car park. I explain the whole thing to him, and together we brave the conference room. He pushes the door open, I hit the lights. Nobody. We scoured the warehouse, even though there's no way that somebody could have got out. The shutter doors are down, locked. We check every room, everywhere. Nobody. To this day, it's the creepiest thing I've ever experienced in the building. I know what I heard. There's no way it could have been wind, heating, because the floorboards make specific noises when people are walking on them. I'd know, I heard them enough. There was no way that anybody could have gone past me, whether in the warehouse or not, as the corridor is so small, and I would see them, or heard the door click again when they left. I've got no explanation. All I know is what I heard. A few years back, I shared a house in the suburbs with a couple of roommates. It was a planned development with lots of benefits like a community pool, park, garden, etc. The downside was the local bus stop ran around 8 p.m. I worked graveyards and early shifts nearby, so not an issue. But my roommate Luke, Worked a night shift that only clocked off at around 10 p.m. Then he had to ride the city bus for an hour to get 10 miles out from where the house was. I told him if he covered some of the utility share, I'd pick him up by my car and save him the late night walk from the city bus. This worked out great, and another roommate, Jen, started to join me for the ride or go on late night snack runs. One night, I was sleeping and woke up to the sound of Jen calling my name over and over. "Wake! Wakey!" I get up and dazed and think, damn, I fell asleep and missed Luke's text. Now we're late to pick him up. Jen's in the driveway under my window and still calling me. "Wakey! Wakey!" I tell her I'm coming and she stops. I'm rushing now because I have 2 roommates waiting on me, so I throw on a jacket, go downstairs and grab the keys, slip on my shoes and open the garage. I see nothing in the driveway except my car. I'm confused, since there's no way Jen's 170 centimeter self is hiding behind our dying rosebush or my Toyota. I think about going out to look around for her because maybe she's walked down the street a bit to smoke a cigarette, since she knows I hate the smell. But I realize I forgot my phone. I close the garage, go back inside. Jen got outside without it open, she can get back without it. As I rush upstairs to where all the rooms are, I realize the lights are on under Jen and Luke's room. They're both home. I get to my room, check my phone, and see it's 2 a.m. on a Sunday. Luke doesn't work Sundays, and Jen was never outside calling my name. Midnight Monster here. Story 7 is about to approach, and it's one of my favorite stories I've read in quite some time. And it's rumored to be absolutely 100% true. If you're enjoying today's stories, make sure you subscribe to the channel, as Midnight Monster releases daily stories that are guaranteed to make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Story 7, here we go. This is a good one and it's 100% true. I won't give the exact location, but it was in Rhode Island about 10 years ago. I was working overnight security at a boatyard. They assemble tugboats, and there were numerous docks and very large warehouses where things were assembled. The job was great, as I could essentially play video games, do homework all night, minus a 20-minute walk about every 2 hours. The only problem with this job was the bizarre and creepy things that continually happen while on shift. You have to understand, a large, rusty, foggy, industrial yard like this, late at night in near total darkness minus the lights you turn on then off, plays tricks on people's minds. And I, for one, am a very logical, science-oriented person. Yet, we went through probably about 35 to 40 guards in the year and a half I was there. The latter half being lost to the other posts despite being paid double at this for much, much less work. While working there, I heard all kinds of stories, but I'll give you some of the ones I experienced. One night, while patrolling one of the assembly warehouses, I heard something following me from behind. It was the strangest thing. I could find the source of the noise, but every time I turned around, I could hear something scatter and run. Something big. Go back to the security room and look through the cameras, and it's a massive damn cat. Some sort of mountain lion. I had to call animal control, and they hunted and caught the damn thing 5 hours later. That night, it's back. I can see it in the cameras and call again. This time, they couldn't catch it. At one point, I was directing animal control to the thing which I could see on the camera. They were walking right past it. They never ended up with the second catch. This then happened on the third night. I almost got my ass in hot water before one of the responding animal control guys sat down right next to me trying to direct his buddy. To this day, I still don't know what the fuck was going on with that. We never caught the second ghost lion thing, though it would return when the weather was warm. Another night, I was walking across one of the large, empty sections of the yard and was hit in the leg by a wrench. A large, 5-pound wrench. It hit me hard enough that I stumbled and almost went down. The thing is, there was no place this could have fallen from. The nearest roof a goodly distance away. Someone would have had to toss it like a football field to hit me with it. There was one night I was taking a shit in one of the stalls. I heard the super large hangar open despite the controls for it being locked. I was weirded out but decided to finish my shit and then investigate. It then closed again, then opened, then As I'm getting ready to wipe my butt and troubleshoot this thing, the bathroom door rips open, slamming hard enough to give me a heart attack, and every stall door slams open. Given we were on the docks that were a lot of seagulls, occasionally one or two would sit on the end of the pier and watch us do the rounds. One night, a small flock of them, probably 5 to 10, flew into a compact ball. It was super weird. I've never seen them do that before. They then proceeded to follow me around at a set distance. If I approached, they went away. When I walked away, they followed. When I went into the guard shack, they all landed on the roof. Weirdest damn thing. The last example I give was one of the few deaths that happened on site. A worker was not wearing a harness during a warehouse roof repair, fell through and landed on some machinery a good 40 feet below. He was dead by the time the ambulance got there. The following day, the roof caved in on the CEO's office during an international conference call, sending him to the hospital. The weird thing is, the main office building was a new construction with no maintenance issues whatsoever. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the final story has approached us. If you've enjoyed the content so far, do show some love by smashing that like button and subscribing to the channel. And here comes today's story number 8. So, I went outside for a walk at night sometimes. It's not the best habit, but I figured it was alright to do then and again, because I moved to a gated complex. But oh boy, I was wrong. One day I went back from a walk and found a stranger in the fountain circle, and he was looking at me as I got closer. I won't say I know everyone in the neighborhood, but I know a lot of people and their families because I'm part of the Women's Association. And yet I never ever saw this guy. He could be a ghost, sure, but he struck me as an odd one even from a distance. He was just standing still in the fountain in the middle of the night, so that's odd enough. But he also looked unstable. His eyes were red, he looked like he hadn't showered for a while, and his clothes were full of stains. Did one of the neighbors go through a rough patch or something, I thought. But I haven't heard anything like that. I decided to walk the long way around. We kept our eyes locked on each other, then out of nowhere he starts screaming. I couldn't tell what he was saying, but it sounded horrible. He was angry, he was sad, or whatever intense emotion it was. I bolted and he ran after me. He stopped screaming and he was chasing me. Instead, he got a knife out. I honestly thought I would die if he caught me. I ran the fastest I've ever ran in my life, but I did not run straight home. I did not want him to know where exactly I live. I jumped over fences and trespassed into other people's properties, which was a horrible decision in hindsight, but I did not think that far at the moment. I got home and hid in my second story up all night. I belatedly realized I must have invited disaster upon my neighbors, but I don't have the guts to get out again. In the morning, I immediately went to look for the security to find what the shit happened last night. Security said there had been complaints about some ruckus and asked me about it. Yeah, that was probably me. But they did not find any guy when they investigated last night. Though, apparently, some people did see someone running, but it was probably just me, not the guy I described. They looked for him for some time and did night patrols, but nothing. To this day, I still have no idea what that was, what was up with him, and I stopped going for night walks for a while. Okay everyone, I want to thank you for listening to these 8 stories presented to you by Midnight Monster. On the channel, we are known to upload some of the creepiest, most unexplained, murder mystery type stories. If that's something that interests you, make sure you press that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one.